So hello, Kim Knight here from KimKnightHealth.com, and it's been a couple of weeks since I did a live webinar because I've been super busy doing some other trainings. So hopefully now I'm back on track. And today I want to do a webinar on how to deal with upsets and also shocks, because this happens to us all the time, right? We're going along in life and we think everything's going fine, we're having a good day, and then seemingly out of the blue, something upsetting happens. And it just wrecks our day, or maybe even it wrecks our week. So I want to give some really practical steps on how to deal with these sort of events as soon as possible, ideally immediately, so that we can get through them in literally minutes, rather than having to spend days or weeks feeling upset about them. So before I get into it, as I always say at the start of my webinars, is please take responsibility for anything that I say. Just do what is right for you. Seek medical advice and guidance if you need to. I'm just giving my personal experience and my clinical experience when working with clients, my professional training, but it is totally up to you how you use this information. Please take responsibility for yourself. So some steps to deal with upsets and shocks. So the first thing is that we need to accept the reality of the situation, right? Because when something happens, it happens and we can't undo it. It's happened. And often one of the most stressful things about a situation, if it's upset us, is that we're unconsciously resisting it. We're resisting reality. And there's a lovely phrase, what we resist persists. Or also stress is resisting what is. So the first thing is to accept the reality of the situation and not push against it, not try and push it away, because it's happened. And it's how we respond to the situation that is going to make all the difference in how we feel, rather than the actual situation itself. It's always about our response. And we can evolve and train ourselves to respond in a better way. So rather than reacting, we can respond. Now, reacting is mainly done unconsciously, whereas responding is done consciously. So this is about whether we have control or whether we feel we have control over the situation. And we may not be able to control or change the actual situation, but we can control how we feel about it. And this is a very important thing for us as human beings, is learning how to control our responses. Now, I've also put here, check, is it a UDIN? Now, a UDIN is what we call a conflict shock event. So it's more than just a little upset. It's actually quite a major trauma or stress to the system. So UDIN stands for unexpected, dramatic, isolating, no strategy shock event. And these are for these events that really feel like they've pulled the rug out from underneath you, or they've popped your balloon and you just feel utterly devastated and shocked. You just didn't expect it at all. And it's worse than just an upset. So it's really good to differentiate between the two, because if it is a UDIN, it's even more important to make sure that we learn how to do the next steps. So when we've had an upset, the first thing after accepting the reality of the situation, the next thing that we need to do is to acknowledge our feelings. Because it will be, apart from stress that's been triggered inside the body, it will be feelings that have been triggered and generated inside the body. And the types of feelings that will have been generated will be things like upset or hurt, or maybe some fear, disappointment, maybe some sadness or grief. These are going to be the types of emotions that have been triggered inside of us. Now, what can often happen is when we have an upsetting event, and this is part of our conditioning and programming in our society, is that we go into our head to try and make meaning and to try and resolve it. But we can't think our feelings away. There is a big difference between thoughts and feelings. Thoughts are rational and feelings are irrational, and we cannot think our feelings away. So we must give ourselves permission to acknowledge and feel our feelings. So, for example, I had something happen to me this morning which generated some disappointment and some hurt inside. And the very first thing I made sure I did, was to acknowledge and tap into, well, what are the feelings? So we have to learn how to identify our feelings. So what are the feelings that are running inside of me as a result of this event? And then had to give myself permission to feel them and to clear them. And once we do that, then we don't get stuck in the story that goes round and round in our head over why this thing was wrong, why this thing shouldn't have happened, etc., etc. If we process the feelings, it clears the story and it stops all the mind chatter and the mind going into overdrive. So in order to feel our feelings, one of the easiest ways that I teach people to feel their feelings is to simply tune into how we're feeling, to identify the feeling, to locate where the feeling is in the body, because it will be somewhere in the body. And for example, hurt is usually in the heart, sadness is in the chest area as well, because it's connected with the lungs, anger is more down in our gut area, fear is more down in our solar plexus area. So identify where the feelings are, and then simply say to yourself, I acknowledge this feeling. These feelings are welcome. Because what feelings need is to be acknowledged without judgment. Most of the time we're judging ourselves for feeling, but we don't even know we're doing that. So we have to acknowledge and accept our feelings without judgment. And we give them the attention that they need and want. And as we do that, they simply dissipate by themselves. But if we ignore them and we don't notice how we're feeling and we don't acknowledge our feelings, then the feelings will persist. And that will keep the mind chatter going as well, and the story going of, okay, well, this is what I should have done, this is what they should have done, this is wrong, that's wrong, they're wrong, I'm right, all that sort of stuff. Then what is useful to know is that there are several core fears that run inside all of us as human beings. And 4 of these core fears run our psyche, if you like, and they run our behaviors, and they dictate how we respond emotionally to these types of situations. So there's the fear of being rejected, the fear of feeling our feelings, the fear of feeling vulnerable, and the fear of losing someone or something. Now these are core fears which run inside our psyche. And underneath that is really the fear of not being loved and accepted unconditionally. So these fears run on 2 levels at the same time. They run emotionally, but they also run physiologically. Emotionally, it's more about, you know, will I be rejected? Will I be alone? Will I be abandoned by my tribe? Because human beings don't want to be alone. And that is very connected to the physical fear of, if I'm alone and abandoned, then I'm going to die. And this relates back to very, very old parts of how we operated hundreds, thousands of years ago, back to tribal fears of, if we were ousted from the tribe or left behind by the tribe, we would die. So we have to understand this connection between the emotional fears and the physiological fears, and why we tend to push these emotions away, because we're not wanting to feel emotionally rejected, and we're also not wanting to feel afraid of dying at a physiological fundamental level. So once we've identified and cleared the feelings and processed that emotional energy, then we have to make sure that we're also very kind to ourselves, that we're kind and gentle to ourselves, and often we can spend a lot of time beating ourselves up. And so we have to remind ourselves that we're okay, that even if it was our mistake, That doesn't make us a totally bad person. It was just one event in our life, and that doesn't mean that we're unworthy or undeserving or bad. And this is what tends to happen when we have an event, especially if we think we're at fault. We tend to think, okay, well, I'm a failure, I'm bad, I'm unworthy. No, this is not the truth. We're all okay, we're human, we make mistakes, and we can get through this. So remind yourself that you're okay. And then sometimes we need to ask for support. So if we've had an upsetting experience, one of the most valuable things we can do is to talk to a friend. And we don't want that friend to try and save us. We don't want them to come up with solutions. We just want to be able to share the truth of how we're feeling, and we just want to be vulnerable and honest and have them witness our feelings. This is what we want, and this is what little children want. And really, even though we're adults, we still have these emotional needs that we had as a child. So it's really important to ask for support and make sure that you go to the right people for this type of emotional support, and you will know who those people are in your life. And once we've done all that, we're pretty much likely to be feeling a lot better, and then we can just carry on with our day, rather than spending the whole day or the whole next few days or however long mulling over and churning over the unprocessed emotional energy inside our body that was triggered by this upset. So we do have the power to clear this emotional energy, to clear these emotional upsets very, very quickly if we have this step-by-step procedure to do so. So just to recap, first of all, we have to accept the situation. It happened. It's a reality. Secondly, we need to identify and acknowledge the emotions. Then we need to process those emotions. And we need to treat ourselves kindly, maybe forgive ourselves if necessary, accept ourselves, we're okay. Then we need to ask for support if necessary. And once we've done all that and we've processed that emotional energy, then we carry on with our day. It's gone. The issue is gone. It's in the past. We don't have to carry it around in our heads, thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it. We let it go and we carry on. So I hope that's been useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.